Had a charming Father's Day weekend. It's a little weird when you have adult children because they have to work, and I'm sitting in the other room with my guitar playing a Harry Chapin song. It's
Tell me it wasn't Cats
Was
in the
it
Cradle.
Cat's Cradle?
No, actually, we went to. My one son works as a retail sales establishment, let's just say, and so we went and we visited him there under the guise of having to make some minor purchase, and then my other son met us at a restaurant, and then we traveled around a little bit and did some shopping at a sporting goods store, one of these mega stores that's just opened near us, and I did get to talk to my daughter in the jungle in Bolivia, who's not actually in the jungle right now, who's in a city, by video chat, and then my other daughter in North Carolina. So we got them all in, but nice. I imagine, Steve, it was a little different at your house.
It was. And just let me open with an apology for looking like death and having a brain moving like molasses uphill in winter with a stiff downhill breeze.
Is this related to Father's Day?
Well, no, but I'll get to that in a second. My 9-year-old decided there was something he absolutely positively had to tell us a little before midnight last night, and I never did get back to sleep. So here it is, 11:48 in the morning on Tuesday, and I've already been up for 12 hours.
Wow.
I know the feeling, brother.
I'm hurting today, so take it easy on me this week is all I'm asking. Yeah, Father's Day was great. My boys made me brunch. Melissa orchestrated the whole show. There were wonderful gifts. In fact, I'm going to have to run, get something later. My 14-year-old makes a damn fine omelet, and he did it Thomas Keller style this time, which he learned from one of those masterclass videos. Because
is he the painter of light
app on the Apple TV? No, Thomas Keller is the most Michelin-starred chef, I believe, in history. Runs the French Laundry and Bouchon, which I believe. Well, I know French Laundry is in Northern California. I think Bouchon's there too, and also Per Se, which I think is in New York City. Anyway, it's just the food was wonderful. The company was wonderful. I love having a lazy Sunday. It was amazing.
I don't know any of those words that you just said. And that's after 5 years of French. I still have no idea what you said. So anyway, this is clearly a stalling tactic on my part. By the way, I'm Scott Ott. Stephen Green was the guy speaking French, and Bill Whittle is also with us today by virtue of the fact that the website, billwhittle.com, has his name on it. And we are getting together to plan this week's episodes of Right Angle, and Steve will be hosting 2 episodes this week. And I'll be very honest with you, because I trust you won't tell anybody. I have no idea what I should talk about this week, and more accurately,
I got nothing.
What's that?
I got nothing. That's what you're saying.
Well, and it's not like there's not a lot of things in the news. I just hate them all.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, there's been so much of that.
Could we do one about maybe the virus, or perhaps the George Floyd thing? Those things seem to be.
I actually did think about doing a story that was about
ago.
The virus because of the George Floyd thing, because Dr. Deborah Birx apparently said she was concerned about people going to the streets and not, exercising social distancing, some of them not wearing masks. And what happened to the good old days when every Antifa person was wearing a mask and it wasn't didn't have anything to do with health.
Funny. That's funny.
Quite the opposite. So
there's
maybe
just a little sign of the times. There's a web shirt company that I bought a couple of shirts from just in the last year or so. And I got an email from them, I think just the last few days, where it's buy any 2 of our shirts and we'll send you a free face mask in one of their shirt patterns.
Ooh, matching?
Matching. Well, I don't know if it's matching or not.
I was thinking about this at work. I was thinking, depending on how long this thing goes on, like, it would be nice if my face mask matched my tie, or at least complemented it.
Well, yeah, you want it to complement, not match. It should be, you know what? Masks are going to be the pocket squares of the 2020s.
They better not be, by God. By the way, Steve, your shirt perfectly matches the blue trim on your chair. And when you sit still, it makes you look like you've got a really cool 21st century jetpack on.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Or
I
more
need
like
a jetpack.
an Emperor Palpatine hood of some sort.
Yeah. Now, if you could just tilt down real fast,
That's what you know what? Screw this gaming chair. I've loved it for the last couple of years, but now I want Palpatine's throne. And I'm gonna start each segment by rotating.
It's great. Classic.
I think that your throne should be made of the bones of your enemies.
Well, who says this one isn't? They're just finely ground.
Speaking of which, and I'm stalling to see if Steve can hold that cup up long enough to generate comments in the comments section, because we frequently get comments about Steve's mugs. Yeah. But Steve, this is your week to host 2 episodes, and I'm hoping you'll mention 3. So,
so you can have one of them.
Yes. So go ahead. How about it?
Well, Scott, why don't you decide on a topic and go first, and then I'll go and take your topic since I have
How
the
about
bonus this
I
week.
decide? How about if I go first since I've already got a topic?
Oh, that's right. And Bill is terrified that one of us is going to name his topic. He never wants to go first. So.
All right, Bill goes
Desperate
first.
times call
I'm
for
easy.
desperate measures, boys.
Go ahead, Bill.
I want to. I had, for the first time in a year, experienced some genuine like shock terror, which lasted 24 hours until I found out that we got punked by the left when they bought all the tickets to the Donald Trump fundraiser.
That was a rally or something in Oklahoma.
Yeah, it was just a rally.
Rally, right?
I forget.
Because when I saw the empty stadium for about 24 hours until I figured out what happened, I thought, oh, this is bad. They were talking about having sold that thing out and a million requests for tickets for it or so on. Well, it turns out the reason that the stadium was a quarter full was because the left got together and all purchased tickets. You
didn't even have to purchase tickets. It's free.
Just
you just had to
reserved them?
Yeah, you just reserved them.
And boy,
so no one else got
punked.
them, so no one else came. So to me, it's kind of like, okay, fooled me once, You're not going to fool me again, number one. And number two, that was the only time in this election that I felt really worried. And it lasted 24 hours. And when I found out that this was just another dirty trick by these low-life Machiavellian swine, I took a sigh of relief and just said, golden. We're golden. Meanwhile, Joe Biden apparently had some kind of presser where 20 people showed up. 20, not 20,000 or 20 million, but 20.
I haven't.
Wow.
Go ahead.
You could have bought Joe Biden's entire audience for $1 each and paid $20.
Biden's ready for meet the press, as in he needs to meet this whole idea of the press. He's been at his basement for 3 months now. And I don't know if you see any of his little ads that come up before our videos, before our segments.
I've seen them. And I thought, man, this is a guy who's like, he's doing a Kickstarter for like, could you take care of my grandkids when I've gone kind of a thing? He's got the energy of a guy who's like, he's like in the last days of the struggle here on this Vale of Tears. And he's, I'm Joe Biden. And I just wanted to say we need your help. Okay, man, you are a dynamo. And, but seriously, those pictures of the empty stadium really concerned me.
Yeah.
And then I found out within 24 hours, okay, it's just a little trick. They won't be able to do that on election day. And I don't know what our viewers think, but I think for most people, certainly for me, it made me feel like, now I really, really want to go to one just to show these bastards, what this actually looks like.
You know what I would do to end this? In order to register, you have to give credit card information. There's a $10 deposit, fully refundable, when they scan the barcode on your phone when you show up at the event.
If you make it $100, you will have 5% of those people being pranksters. And if you make it $300, then only Trump people will show up.
They,
So I said fully
I
refundable.
heard in passing, Glenn Beck mentioned this morning that that rally, I think it was the same rally, they were streaming it on Fox News, and apparently Fox broke all their like viewership records. Like 7 million people watched it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a big deal, and we got
Those are
pumped. That's all
huge
there is
cable
to it. But that's what happens with honest people. And if we want to just to get this straight the next time, so it doesn't happen again, just get the person to, just have them Skype in when they're calling in for the tickets and just say, could you please just recite the Pledge of Allegiance? And if they can do it without their skin bursting into flame, then you give the guy a spot.
I don't know if we should require those kind of tests. I think that that could hurt
Private
a lot
property.
of us.
It's a private event. Your skin's not going to burst into flames if you say the Pledge of Allegiance.
No, probably not.
Hardly ever.
I rest my case.
I got, by the
my
way,
topic.
when I was in 9th grade, maybe, I can remember which homeroom I was in. I was in Miss Kolsar's homeroom, and we had a substitute teacher who came in that day, and we, like every day in school when I was there, and I don't know if this still happens, but at the beginning of the day, we would stand, they'd play the national anthem over the PA systems, so on probably a record with a cheap PA microphone, and then we would recite the Pledge of Allegiance. There was an American flag in the room and everything.
Yep.
And the substitute teacher who was with us did not stand during the national anthem. I could not see straight. I was out of my mind furious with this guy. Like what kind of person is this? How did they let him in here? Like, I grew up with a guy who was, fought in World War II, who was a scout leader, and I was a Cub Scout and then a Boy Scout and did all this kind of stuff. And it had never even occurred to me that you would not stand during the national anthem. And, and I asked him about it afterward, and I don't even remember what he said, but all I can really recall was just how angry I was at the time.
Good for you. This is a sign of a healthy society.
And
if the guy can't stand for the national anthem, then I say, okay, if you have absolutely nothing to do with this civilization of ours, then it'll have nothing to do with you. You have no First Amendment rights, no Second Amendment rights. You have no Fifth Amendment rights. You have no 10th Amendment rights. You have no rights at all.
We're going to
do
quarter
whatever we
troops
want
in
to.
your home.
Yeah, you're living here. We're going to quarter troops in your home. Exactly right. You Fourth Amendment hating son of a.
There's one thing I really miss about Missouri Military Academy, and it wasn't the polyester uniforms or the cut of the Eisenhower jackets or any of that.
The blanket parties.
Or the blanket parties. It was every night hearing the bugler play taps.
Yeah.
It's just such a haunting little song, and it was lovely. And yeah, it was an actual bugler from Charlie Company, which was our band company, going out there every night and playing taps as they brought the flag down.
I just yesterday got the urge to listen to the Andrews Sisters' Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy of Company B. And so that's what I listened to after I put away my, as I say, I put away my toys at work and I'm headed for the time clock to clock out. And I've got 2 earbuds in and I'm listening to these fantastic harmonies as the Andrews Sisters tell the story about this guy who got drafted into the Army and he was like a jazz musician and was kind of depressed that he couldn't, that he had to just play reveille and taps and stuff like that. And then the commander of his unit gave him a band, and then the famous chorus, he made the company jump when he played reveille.
I wonder if anybody ever had like an apartment complex next to like a base or a Virginia Military Academy or something and just got so upset to having so many service people nearby that they, tried to ban him and then they went to court and then there was a big lawsuit and then the guy just basically got on the stand and said, Your Honor, I take the 4th. That would be really cool.
I don't know. But if it didn't happen, it should have.
I respectfully invoke my 4th Amendment rights, Your Honor.
Okay, so we got Bill's thing about the Trump rally. Steve, you said something?
Yeah, I got a couple of topics.
Okay, good. I couldn't remember whether you had already given me your topics, and I was so busy scrolling through the news feed here trying to find a topic.
Listen, I'm so tired at this point. I'm lucky I remember that I hadn't gone yet. It could have happened. I want to talk about the coming implosion of Blue America. We're seeing the first little trickles of it. And, actually, we've already had a preview of it. Detroit. We've seen what happens when the left gets complete control of a city, and it's Detroit, which has just been completely hollowed out, abandoned. You can buy a house for $500, and that's because it's barely standing because somebody never sold it. They just left it, abandoned it like a car on the side of the road. Wow. We're talking about a house here. A couple of stories really caught my eye. One, the Italian luxury designer brand Valentino is suing to get out of its Fifth Avenue storefront lease.
Excellent.
9 years early. They signed this lease in 2013. It goes until 2029. And this lease is for an average of it's over $2,400 a square foot per month for this real estate. I mean, it's Fifth Avenue. It's where the rich and famous go to see and be seen while they shop.
Is the store more than 1 square foot large?
Yes, they sell a ring, and it's on a pedestal 1 foot square. It's a very nice ring too.
Wow.
The lawsuit claims their landlord, of course, wouldn't break the lease because clearly the landlord knows that they're never going to get anybody else to pay this kind of rent anymore. The lawsuit claims that, and this is a quote, business at the premises has been substantially hindered and rendered impractical, unfeasible, and no longer workable essentially by the lack of policing in New York City. Another story, due to Seattle's unrest, a $1 billion investment firm is pulling up stakes and moving to Phoenix. I mean, and investment firms, that's some of the bluest of the blue money, big money in this country. The Wall Street, the investment firms, they all went gung-ho on the Democrats starting about 15, 20 years ago. And what was this other one? Michael Snyder at themostimportantnews.com wrote a story, and I'll actually have a kind of a lengthy clip from this. Says there's a mad rush. I think that those are his exact words, to get out of the cities, and that rents and real estate prices in the exurbs and the suburbs are about to skyrocket because there is going to be a lot more demand than there is supply coming up in the next couple of years.
You know what this leads me to think about?
Uh-oh.
And that is the great wisdom of the Catholic Church with regards to purgatory.
How so?
I think that anyone fleeing the city should have to spend a significant period of time in a enclosed zone that surrounds the city in question
to make atonement.
And we'll watch. Well, no. We're not looking back. We're looking forward. We're not progressives obsessed with what's behind us. We're just going to give them a probationary period. I think 20 years ought to do it.
20 years.
To see how they vote. And their votes won't count, but we see how they vote. And then if it turns out that they're taking their blue state politics with them to red states and ruin those places, then we simply say, "I'm sorry, no, you'll remain here until we're satisfied that you're not going to screw up everything else, basically."
Yeah, there should be some sort of, they always want to have like waiting periods for purchasing a handgun. Well, votes are much more dangerous than handguns, as we've seen over the years. And so there really should be kind of a cooling off period, a waiting period when you first come to a new jurisdiction where you're not allowed to vote. You can still vote in your old district if you want to. I think they should have you absentee in your old district because I don't want to strip you of your right to vote. But there ought to be some period of time where you get a chance to become acculturated to the local community. I remember when we first moved to Texas, I had some of my friends back home were asking me if I was going to run for office, since I had run for office a couple of times and I was a sitting county commissioner back in Pennsylvania. And they said, "Are you going to run for office out there?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Why not?" And I said, "They don't need me." They don't. It's like, Out here, but
Welcome to Texas, baby.
that's right. Back east, I was like a, bright red conservative Republican. Out here, they're like, I don't know. We should keep an eye on that guy.
Kind of squishy.
Yeah. So anyway, that sounds like an interesting topic. Now, Steve, was that 2 topics or 1? Because you listed several news stories. They all
that's one topic, and it's about the Blue America. I don't know, Blue America on life support. The
Blue Exodus.
The Blue Exodus. Lexodus.
The Lexus-idus.
Luxodus.
I think it's maybe that the ventilator isn't working, and that's why they're blue. Okay. Let's see.
Lack of oxygen to the brain.
That's right. Okay, and then you have another opportunity as well, Steve, in case you lost that one up.
No, I do. I have 2 topics this week, and the other one is lightning round.
Oh, man. Can you talk slower?
We need a theme song for the lightning round, and it should be a cool theme song like the Gilligan's Island theme song or the Beverly Hillbillies theme song that kind of explains what the show's about in the opening 30 seconds.
Yeah. Did Knight Rider have one of those? Knight Rider should have had one of those.
I don't know if it did or not, but I know that even if you want to go instrumental, that's fine. But if you go instrumental, you have to have an animated opening like I Dream of Jeannie or Bewitched that still tells the story, at least so you can, Yes, all right, I got it.
I for some reason, the immediate thing that came to my head was headlines, exciting and new.
Oh, there you go. That'll work.
The thing is, Bill, I haven't watched an episode of I Dream of Jeannie in, it wouldn't surprise me if it were 40 years. As soon as you mentioned it, the music just, and I could see the animation in my head. I mean, that's iconic stuff. Yeah, it was cheesy and corny and all the rest, but iconic.
I just thought it was cool when you saw inside the bottle. I just thought that was kind of a groovy place to. I could hang in the bottle with Jeannie.
Oh, absolutely.
That was an incredible special effect.
The set with the pillows.
Yes. I'm not quite sure which I want to talk about here because I was trying to think, like, instead of just looking at news and secondhand stuff, it's like, what have I actually engaged in the past week that would be interesting to discuss? And 3 things came to my mind. One of which was a visit to a local craftsman shop. There's this shop that's run by a guy whose name is Odin, Odin, which you got to love that right now. I read about Odin a couple of years ago. There was a story in a local publication about how he was running this shop out of his garage, essentially, and he is a leather craftsman. So he makes, like bags and belts and things like that. And
eye patches? Does he make eye patches?
Has a magnificent beard, which of course you would expect.
With a name like Odin, you have to grow the beard.
Well, I was talking to Odin's wife.
And if you go by Wotan, you have to wear the helmet too with the horns.
I was talking to Odin's wife. This is never going to make it on a real episode. And they have a shop now, a retail shop in this little area called Grandscape, which is right next to near where I work. And it's called like Odin Leather. Anyway, his wife, Rachel, was telling my wife and I and my son that Odin has a sister. Odin's sister's name, Valhalla.
Wow. They take it pretty seriously.
They do, and they call her Val. However, apparently Odin's son, once he got old enough to realize what was going on, became really irked by the fact that they had not named him Thor.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be a tough blow.
Opportunity lost. That's anyway, but this guy is just like a passionate business person with this, kind of doing this old world thing, but with new world marketing techniques on Instagram. And you can follow Odin on Instagram. And I actually bought some beard balm. They had beard balm there, and so it's just like a manly store, with things that smell like leather and tobacco and liquor and stuff. So anyway,
some of the first retailers I saw move online were the leather craftsmen and costume makers you'd see at the Renaissance Fair. They were very quick to do that. And this is just another example of that. It's very cool.
It is kind of weird because they're all sort of geeks. They're not necessarily like, you know, what do they call those people? Luddites. You know, they're not throwbacks to a former era that thinks that modern progress is not good. They're
just like crafting things with their hands.
But anyway, Odin's fantastic.
It'll get scores, if not hundreds of views.
That's right. The other two things that occurred to me is I watched Air Force One again, the movie.
And it's not a good movie.
It's an awesome movie.
Oh, it's an awesome movie. It just isn't good.
And the only bad part about it, and this is my challenge, if anybody's watching this right now, please, somebody watch this. But if anybody's watching this right now, I want you to reshoot the final moments of Air Force One. I want you to do the special effects, because as soon as I watched the plane going into the drink, I realized that there are probably 100,000 American teenagers alive today who could make a better crashing Air Force One into the water sequence.
You grossly underestimated that number.
I think you're right. It's really bad. But actually, what I think I will talk about, and I'm going to try to rein this in, is I just finished listening to the audiobook, The Great Society by Amity Shlaes. This is the third Amity Shlaes book that I know of. I read her book on the Great Depression. I read her book on Calvin Coolidge. I may have read something else as well. But it was kind of insightful to read this book now at this time when there's such unrest, especially in America's cities, especially involving African Americans, and to see in many ways the seeds of some of that. And just this idea of, you know, kind of how there was this mass migration out of the South because the industrial jobs were in Detroit, for example, and all these people moved up there. And then the government got involved in the housing business and decided that it would be a great idea for people to live in hives like bees.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it was bad enough that they got yanked out of their family networks when they moved to the North, but then they just sort of absolutely destroyed any social cohesion that you could enjoy in neighborhoods by piling people up in places like Cabrini Green and Pruitt-Igoe. Pruitt-Igoe, I think, is in Steve's old hometown, right, Steve? Wasn't that St. Louis?
Yeah, I think that is the one in St. Louis that they demolished after a very short run.
Yeah,
because
in
it
the
just
early
turned into a
70s, they tore it
hellhole
down.
Almost immediately, yeah.
But here it was, the smartest, the best and the brightest so-called people in the country got together to come up with a national solution for how to deal with poverty, and declared this war on poverty. And they were going to do all these things that were going to essentially abolish it. It's not just we're going to fiddle around with it anymore, we're going to get rid of it. And in reality, the poverty rate after that and today, frankly, is not much different than it was at the time. And there was this kind of poignant line where I think it was Martin Luther King was talking to Lyndon Johnson in the presence of another guy who's an author of a book on black poverty. And Martin Luther King said to the author, we weren't aware that we were poor until we read your book.
Yeah. Scott, I don't know if Amity Shlaes is going to get into this, but this is one of the most interesting things. This came out years ago, so I assume it's going to make it into her book. After the Second World War ended, there was a gradual but very steady decrease in the poverty rate, and it had gone down to about 15% nationwide. And this is, it's coming from some pretty highs in the Great Depression, but even before the Great Depression, poverty was still pretty damn common. It had come down to about 15% when the Great Society was enacted, and boom, it got locked in at 15.
Yeah.
Just froze it into place.
And that's about where it's remained ever since, as we continue to throw more and more money at it. But I think, fundamentally, at least the lesson I took away from the book was that if you view people as machinery and think you can just pull some levers and turn some knobs and slide some of the, sliders, and somehow you're going to produce the outcome that you want, you're sadly mistaken. And the unintended consequences of that will pile up to the extent that you may wind up with a worse mess after the fact. They basically figured out, or some of them figured out, that these housing projects, for example, were quickly degraded, and they had to spend huge amounts of money on maintenance because nobody felt personally responsible for them. It was nobody's house, and it was just, you strip people of their dignity and you pile them up in Soviet-style apartment buildings, and you take away what makes a man a man. So anyway, let's kick that around a little bit if we can.
I like that a lot.
It's a really good topic.
And it's not a book review. It's not like, and I'm not really trying to slam one particular point about it. By the way, a lot of stuff about Ronald Reagan in there too, and more than I expected about Richard Nixon. So I do recommend you read the book if you haven't done so. But the other thing, I think I may have mentioned this to Bill privately the other day, that I once had this kind of shouting match with my grandfather who raised me. I was home from college and, quite full of myself, and some of that overflowed and spilled on him. And so I was having this shouting match, and at one point I accused him of being an ultra conservative who would have voted for Richard Nixon again if he had a chance. And he was like Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men, and he was just like, "You're damn right I would have." Anyway, now hearing Amity Schlace tell it, and really I have not studied the Nixon administration. I was 11, 12 years old at the time, whatever. Now I'm like, holy cow, Nixon really wasn't a conservative.
No.
I mean, he was
a right-leaning progressive.
Yeah, in fact, he kind of continued and exacerbated some of the so-called war on poverty programs that begun during the Johnson administration. So anyway, we can kick that around this week. Are we out of time yet? Did the clock run out? We're at a mere 32 minutes.
32 minutes.
And I just want to offer a personal thank you to the people who gave feedback to the new feature that I added to the website last week, which you won't find there now because of the feedback that some helpful people gave to me. So all is well. And by the way, Bill, I don't know if we told you about this, but we had a ghost in the machine from an old system that no longer exists that apparently all of a sudden decided on one day to send out an email to a bunch of our members telling them that their membership had expired. And it was about 100 people were sent this thing. And for the first time in my life, I saw 100% delivery rate. Like, we can't get 100% delivery rate on anything.
It only went out to 100 people?
Yeah. It went out to 100, actually 111, I think. And so anyway, we discovered what it was. If you're one of those 111 people, some of them wrote to us, "We're fine. Your subscription has not expired." And thanks to one of our members, a guy named Sam, I was able to dig in and find the place that was set up by a previous contractor before I started working with the website, who had set this thing to automatically send emails to people who's under the old system, whose memberships had expired. So anyway, I disabled that. And if you see anything else funky, just go up at the top of the website. There's an FAQ link, and right under that, there's a thing where you can report bugs or suggest ideas. So feel free to click that and let me know if you see anything else untoward. But this is a work in progress, and our members have always had this kind of attitude like, "Hey, I want to help you make it as good as it can be." So it's, for the most part, every once in a while you get somebody who's complaining, but for the most part, there are people who are just helpfully saying, "Hey, I just noticed this. I'm sure you want to know about it, and get on it, and we can fix things." So thank you so much for that. For Bill and Steve, we're going to get ready, change our shirts, and do some episodes of Right Angle only because of you, because you've made it possible for us to do so. Thank you to the members. Take care.